All right. Welcome again to another Celo governance call. This is another special governance call to continue where we left off in the previous one in regards to the governance working group. So in this call, we're just going to continue going over the tension that we outlined and any of the action items from last time and stuff. Um, so we have the agenda here. I think there's another thing that we had. Does anyone have the link handy for when the shared doc that we did last time? I think I think I have it in a previous doc. Oh, it's go to chat window. Okay. Thank you, Will. All right. All right. So yeah, let's get started. We had a few action items, and I noticed there's a few proposals and stuff, mainly by Will, which I really appreciate that. I'll give you the opportunity to present them if you like and stuff like that. But let's see where we left off last time, and then we can go over any kind of proposals that we have so far. Let's see. So last time we agreed that I'm trying to look for the action item. Okay, we decided that we want to do some proposal for templates and stuff for what a CCP would look like, potential documentation structures and stuff. And all these proposals are by Will. Thank you again, Will. Do you? I'm very happy to go over everything. If you just tell me which one you want me to go over first.
I can just give a quick overview of the stuff that I put in there.
Yeah.
Basically, kind of two different categories. That first link, the one that says potential GitHub documentation structure up for the top. That one is just I just looked at a few, like I looked at Cosmos, their docs, and then a few other docs, and I kind of just made a structure. There's no content in there. I just figured it could be a good doc for us to align on the structure if we're gonna make just make more complete documentation for governance proposals. And then the other three documents, if you go back to the working doc, are just like they're more on. They may be out of the scope for like what this governance working group is currently trying to accomplish, but they're kind of more in line with the sort of broader governance discussion that we talked about in the call 2 weeks ago, where there's a social media post template that I figure could be helpful for sharing with the broader community to help explain a proposal in more detail, and there's a Medium post template there, and then I made just a potential like kind of a skeleton doc for a governance voting primer, just filling in as kind of a new community member, like just bring in some of the questions that I have about voting, since I don't know a ton. But really basic documents, and more just like the structure, because I know we're early on and just aligning on what we want the scope for the working group to be.
Well, I think I would speak for everyone when I say this is really awesome. Thank you so much for taking time to do that. Like, this is so well done. Do you want us to go over item by item? I think I'm happy to go over what you did and stuff for this. And what I would recommend is, because this is a large working group and governance is like a big, large in scope, we can, isolate this as something like a smaller group can do to finalize it together. With you leading this, I'm happy to be part of that. And I think Asa was interested. We just had a really crazy week or two, doing stuff on the network, but we're more than happy to help push this to the finish line and give feedback and stuff appropriately before we present something final and stuff. But yeah, I'm happy to go over them.
Totally.
Yeah.
I figure we could probably just go with kind of because I know you had aligned, or you had planned to align with Judy on the scope for the working doc, and so we could probably go through kind of what you had planned to go through, and then we can bring these up as necessary, and if some of these, like the social media post template, aren't necessarily within the scope of what we want to accomplish right away, we can always kind of put those on the back burner.
Okay, cool. So social media post and the Medium post, I think they're very valuable. We can put them on the back burner, or for now, just we can revisit them later. I think potential GitHub documentation structure is something we can visit and finalize potentially in like not necessarily within this call, but like we can do it more offline and stuff, but we can briefly go over it. What's the governance voting timer again? Is it kind of like, okay, oh, it like kind of shows folks how to get started with voting and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let me go over that one. Can everyone see the screen okay? With the primary voting governance proposal? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, this is awesome. But so kind of like, these kind of like infographics over what kind of thing that we, what's happening in each proposal and who can vote, why voting matters. Well, this is amazing. Okay. So what I would recommend is, and Asa, feel free to jump in if you think it'll be appropriate. Maybe we can, the GitHub documentation structure and potentially be like the primary thing we can work with will maybe potentially async, just to get it finalized and stuff, and we can propose it on GitHub. Any thoughts, Asa?
Yeah, sorry, I switched my headphones. Yeah, that sounds good. I think kind of the next few days are going to be it's going to continue to be difficult for me to spend much time on this. I was on it over the last week, and obviously that wasn't possible. But this is amazing, and I think we should like start rolling this out. This is I think really helps clarify a lot of the kind of roles and actors and the purpose of all this.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know, because we have a baklava donut hardcore happening on Tuesday, and today we have a governance topics happening. So like Asa's pretty preoccupied. Maybe one action item we can do, at least for the scope of the working group, we can have our own private Discord channel, and it's private only because you're concerned people working in this working group, but like anyone can join technically if they part of the call and stuff like that. Does that sound reasonable? What did everyone think about that? As somewhere where we can capture all these and have more live asynchronous conversation moving forward?
I wonder, I mean, how busy is the I guess the alternative would be to just talk about it on the governance Discord channel. Do you think that would like bury some like conversations around kind of ongoing governance action? Or like, what's the concern with using that channel?
I think that channel is more primarily about specific governance proposals per se, and this is more about meta governance, like focus on the actual what did governance 2.0 look like versus being a channel for governance proposal. But like I'm like either or, if people feel one way or the other, I'm happy with either decision.
Yeah, I think a separate channel would be good. Cosmos has a separate working group channel as well. So if we're going to continue like on that path of mirroring Cosmos, that might be a good idea.
Okay, cool. Any other feedback from other people?
I would probably vote for it to be public. I don't know if I heard you say private, but I felt like a public channel everyone can see for governance feels like a useful thing.
I'm open to either or. The reason I said private is because given that the document that we're all sharing and working with is public, I would imagine somebody just joining the Discord, and then sees that public link and then goes on it and can just delete everything. So by having it private, it's more like not private as in nobody can join and stuff, but private as in only the people who take the time to attend this call can put that we can funnel them to that private channel. But that's the extent of that. If you have like an alternative way of doing things, given that we have a public document we're all sharing, I'm happy to think of other ways to do this. But
yeah, if it's access control for the document, then I assume we can just do it on the document, right?
So
yeah,
like,
that would be my suggestion as well, is make the doc view only to anybody with the link, editable by anybody it's been shared with explicitly. And then you just have to request edit access if you want to contribute, and then make the governance, like the Discord channel, open so people can like follow along and contribute. Yeah.
So what I think we would need then, because I have mostly the C-Labber email addresses. Anyone else who's not a C-Labber, please add your email, or if you don't want to share it publicly, email me here on yaz@clab.co, and I'll add you to this document. Then I'll make it explicitly only people who are added to this document by email are allowed to modify it versus making it publicly viewable by anyone. How did that sound for everyone? All right. I'm guessing no. I'm guessing silence means okay. Okay. So.
Sounds good to me.
Let me see. Put this. I'm gonna make a comment here and say make Discord channel, make doc publicly viewable by everyone, modifiable only by those explicitly by email. Cool. All right. So yeah, let's move on then. We agreed at least for the document structure, we're gonna do it async within the channel, the Discord channel that we will have. So yeah, let's go over the other things, other item here. So last time we also talked about potential governance KPIs, some idea thing we can track. Who added this? I don't remember if anyone added it specifically, or did we cover it last time? Did anyone know?
Oh yeah, I added it. We don't necessarily need to go through. I was just kind of brainstorming like some things that we could keep track of, just to evaluate like our progress over time with this governance. But don't necessarily need to go through it right now.
But it's still amazing that you actually thought about the KPIs and stuff. We should find a way to formalize it as a way, in a way to track it. Let me just do find. Let's do. Okay. Do you want to briefly go over, Will?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick overview. I was just thinking about it in terms of a funnel where we've got people who are part of the Celo general community, and then kind of the next level of participation might be people who are actively voting in the process, and so thinking about how we can convert people to voters, and then from there to people who are actively contributing to the governance process, whether in these meetings or by submitting proposals. And so that was kind of the general theme of the metrics.
Awesome. And I'm kind of curious as well, maybe it's also an opportunity to visit. I know we have existing dashboard that track governance and metrics. Maybe if some of the, the items, the metrics aren't tracked down in this existing dashboard, we can potentially request to have them at a place where we can capture. Right, and would follow up with Will on voter participation metrics as well. But yeah, it could be something. Let's discuss this more, because I think this is super important stuff, just to be able to have a place to track it down for the governance KPIs. Okay. More accessible governance documentation for the general Celo general community. What did you start to work on in this process? Okay, so yeah, I think we kicked off here. I believe I was supposed to, Judy and I were to do a meta governance, a tiny working group, if you will. But I believe Judy was out of office for a week, and then we had some, the whole incident the past week. We didn't really get to it, but potentially maybe we can revisit that as an action item, the meta governance action item within the CLab Discord. Is there anyone who added anything for that specific thing here that they want to go over? Okay. Let's put this on the back burner then, like until, I'll coordinate with Judy, Gab, and Daniel, right? Just to see what is the, how do we define how we work, and the meta governance side of this working group and stuff. Okay, so this is all one kind of like all this discussion that we had last week was about not having the governance and CGP process as specified as the CIP process. And like, this is already an amazing amount of effort that Will kickstarted along with a few of the community members the last 2 weeks. So we really appreciate that. I think this is something that we can take and scope it out even further and stuff, and have something more like, potentially finalized for this group. So with that said, and because we agreed that we would have to continue the discussion on the CLab Discord, I'm curious if everyone is okay with us moving to the next tension item. We never even got to the next tension item last call. So how did everyone feel about that? Are we okay to move on, or do you feel we haven't touched on something in the other one? Okay, I'm gonna assume that we're okay to proceed with the next tension. Okay. So the next tension, and I think I brought it up 2 weeks ago, and I think I heard it from other people as well. And so the original dissension was when you create a CGP governance proposal, we have to assign a number to it to track it down, like externally, if you want to communicate it with community members and stuff. So it goes by item, like, the item is basically whatever's numbered, like, the next number that is available and stuff. The problem with this process is when you submit that proposal on chain, it generates its own proposal ID, which is separate than the CGP number. So that kind of inconsistency kind of confuses people, right? And to further add on the confusion, sometimes a CGP is referring to a CIP. Like, let's say, for example, the Celo Euro, there were several CGPs that refer to CIP 33, which is the Celo Euro standard. So you have a proposal ID, which might have a different CGP ID, and we're all referring to a different CIP. So if you're not confused, I don't know about you, but I was confused this time, right? So I'm not sure if this is like doable or something, but I at least want to, bring it up to the working group to at least talk about if there's any way we might, at the very least, make the proposal ID consistent with the CGP number ID, or if there's a process around the CGP that we can like fine tune in order to only get a proposal ID number after or something. So anyone had any thoughts? Like, I'm opening it up for the working group to give feedback.
I think in the past we've talked about like content derived unique IDs, which is like basically what we already use for the hotfix mechanism. And that allows us to like definitively distinguish between, but obviously it's not a very like human readable or like convenient label. But that is like at least a way to have like a guarantee of like what maps to what on chain.
Would that make the proposal ID different, even though like
yeah, so without more contract changes, it would be difficult to like manipulate the proposal ID itself to something that like maps to our forum sequence. And so yeah, my recommendation would be to like kind of obfuscate the proposal ID itself, which is really more just like an implementation detail of the contract, and use a content derived ID as like the label that we add to like the CLI and kind of use in communications so that there's no confusion.
Do you know, is it not possible to just have like a proposer submitted ID as the proposal ID? Like what is the reason
Proposal
why we
ID
can't do
is
that?
literally just like an index in like a mapping. And it just increments by
so
one every time someone proposes.
exactly. So I guess what I'm asking is like, could we just have it be like submitted by the proposer? In which case, like we can basically like rely on the proposer to align the on-chain proposal ID with the CGP number.
I mean, I think the complexity involved in like making sure that we don't like overload certain proposal IDs. Are you saying just like add a non-functional parameter, which is just like ID to the, like we already have the URL as like a proposal property, right? So like that should be pointing already to like the correctly labeled CGP or whatever it is.
Yeah, fair. But I mean, I guess I don't know if you have this conversation now, but it does sound like possible to me with fairly minimal changes to the governance contract to just have that proposal ID be effectively user chosen. And we just have to like, keep a track record on like existing past proposal IDs.
Yeah, we could do that. I just think that there are less, there are easier solutions that we can like do here without contract changes, like the content derived thing. But yeah, I hear that like it's nice to
in this
simplify.
case, why don't we I guess because this is like a governance working group, and like it seems to me there are two different proposals here. One is a proposal ID being user chosen, or content derived unique IDs, which is just like an implementation detail, maybe like a hash or something, right? Would it be possible then just to write down two different GitHub tickets, one specifying each different behavior, and we can get it potentially maybe up to a vote or something, or just like, take that kind of like conversation, like async, to continue conversation on these two different GitHub tickets? Would that be something you're open to?
Yeah, I can create tickets, I guess.
Awesome. So at least for this one, I'm going to put an action item, and I'm going to be tagging you in it, York. Nam, do you want to create a ticket for user chosen proposal ID?
Maybe York, could you just do both?
Yeah, I can do both.
Cool, thanks.
All right, cool. Does anyone else have any feedback about how do we resolve the inconsistency between both proposal ID and CGP number? We already have two different awesome proposal, but this is an opportunity. If anyone else has any ideas, we can add that to the list.
I'm not totally convinced. Well, yeah. Okay. Sorry, never mind. I was gonna say I'm not totally convinced it's a problem because like the mapping isn't always clear, right? Some CIPs don't result in any CGPs. Some CGPs don't have any related CIPs. And some CGPs may imply some CIPs may imply multiple CGPs, and similarly, some CGPs may bundle multiple CIPs, right? So if you could imagine like a couple CIPs to change core Celo contracts, and then the CGP being a contract release that relates to like a number of, that relates to those CGPs that kind of were proposals for changing core contracts. So, I mean, I think the current system right now is really confusing because the numbers look somewhat similar. But yeah, I don't know if make the identifiers for CGPs and CIPs the same is the right solution to the confusion that we have right now.
Yeah, I don't think we're proposing making the CIP number and the CGP number the same. This is more the proposal ID. So when you propose a governance proposal on chain, it inherits a proposal ID. And like, let's say you want to share this governance proposal on, like, let's say we have a platform called Celo.stake.id.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so this is like the number become number 24. And even though it's referencing as another, like a different CGP, in this case, it's referencing CGP 27. So I think this is the inconsistency that we're,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. Sorry, guys. I was on a, I was multitasking. Just we had an epoch change and we had a bunch of validators rotating their signers, and we just wanted to make sure everything worked smoothly. So that's my bad. Yeah. So that is totally a problem worth solving. One other option is basically you could imagine a governance contract that allows you to reserve a proposal ID, but that doesn't require you to populate the contents of the proposal yet. So the kind of flow would be reserve a unique proposal ID, then write up your CGP and put it forward, or vice versa, I guess. It's like write up your CGP in GitHub and kind of get your CGP number there. Well, okay, maybe you just reserve them both at the same time. But do you see where I'm going with this? You could basically reserve the CGP number on chain and then populate the contents later, and it wouldn't be you wouldn't be able to vote on it or approve it or do anything until you actually populated the contents, which would then be immutable.
I think, like, just again, I know I already spoke, but like the only reason that I see the number of the proposal itself as useful is like both like a chronology. So like, when was this created and like, where is it in the sequence, and like something to remember the proposal by without having to like understand the contents. And I really don't think that like we should tie ourselves to that representation of like those two things. Like the chronology can easily just be like a date, which also already exists on the proposal. And the labeling, like we can, my suggestion is just like the content derived thing, but we can like come up with a different labeling mechanism that like doesn't require us to do this like coordination gymnastics of like the off-chain and on-chain like correspondence. I think, and in general, my policy is like use on-chain as like the source of truth. And so I think the off-chain labeling should just be like, derived from whatever exists on-chain.
But that if we use like the hash, right, then if that's how we're going to label it off-chain as well, doesn't that make it kind of hard to refer? You know, it's like, hey guys, like, you know, it's like time to vote on CGP 0x45823ABC, right? Which is
right. Which is why I mean, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I think we kind of need we need like a short name for the.
I mean, we could just like take the first four like hex or something. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I also like the whole governance contract just for reserving a governance ID and stuff. I think that would be like interesting, because then your mechanism would be, let's reserve the governance ID on chain, like, so that allowed, you know, like the proposal by York, where which would like, you know, we keep on chain being the default and you reserve an ID, or if even better, if it can propose an ID for you from the next available one, and that becomes the ID that, you know, is tied to your proposal, and then that ID would inform your CGP on GitHub when you finalizing your draft and stuff. Maybe that could be something that we can also explore, like another proposal.
Yeah, that's my again, Grant, you know, with the caveat that I was distracted for kind of 10 minutes, about 5 minutes ago. I think that approach solves a lot of our issues. Yeah, I'm trying to think about, like, something about me likes the idea of the ID being derived from the content of the proposal, but I don't think there's a way to make that like user friendly. And I'm just trying to reflect on like what about that is appealing to me.
No, I see what you're saying, because let's say somebody who might not be comfortable, submitting something on chain or interacting with a smart contract, nevertheless still wants to submit a governance proposal. So that it's not very user friendly from that angle. Is that what you're referring to?
It's not, but I think that's an excellent point as well. But I mean, ultimately, I think I don't know. I mean, if you're making like governance proposals are in CGPs, I think are inherently technically complex. I think the simplest CGP you can possibly make is just asking for Celo to be spent out of the governance contract. And even that, I feel like requires making that proposal obviously requires a level of sophistication. I guess what I'm trying to understand is like, who are the users that we expect to be making CGPs that would be able to like write up a CGP on GitHub, but not be able to like kind of put that CGP into a CLI? Because I think that's Anywho, I mean, I think we have a few like decent options. EIPs are already at the scale of 4 digits. Not that easy to remember by number. Yeah, that's true. That would be funny to, I like York's commenting in the thing to hash by, I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's an interesting idea to like hash the proposal contents and then use that to like derive a hex color. Obviously it's hard to like, you can't refer to a hex color by name, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah. All right. I think so far what I'm seeing, there's 3 different proposals, right? User chosen, like you specify it when creating the proposal ID, you specify or you fix the proposal ID to follow the CGP. And then the content derived unique ID, which you're going to create a ticket for. And then you have the governance contract as a potential third solution, with the caveat being that because it's going to be more like an on-chain mechanism, it will be harder for like, there might be a small Venn diagram with a little overlap of people who are comfortable writing a governance proposal, but not comfortable submitting it on chain. But I think it's still worthy of a discussion or having it as another ticket as a proposal. So Asaph, if that's cool with you, I'd like to at least make it an action item for not necessarily you, but like at least have a ticket for it, just so we can track it down.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth having a ticket being like, GitHub CGP, on-chain CGP, like numbers should, or like IDs should be the same. Yeah, that's a great point, that if you do make it content addressable, you need to nail down the content before you can write it up, which gives you no flexibility in like realizing that the content should be slightly different later. Yeah, I think, and depending on how we implement this, I guess, so basically there's like a whole long list of, here, I'll turn my video on. I just have a mask because somebody is here that's not in my pod. Basically there's like a whole laundry list of things I think we would want to do if we built a governance 2.0. I think being able to, something we saw from the last week is that it would be nice to be able to have regular governance proposals that could execute more quickly if enough voters, voted for them. I think there's a question of like what keys should be able to sign off on a hotfix. Like there's a whole, and then like, I think we talked about getting rid of the upvote stage. Like there's a whole list of things I think we could, making timings more predictable, et cetera. I think Yeah, York, that's a good point. I think what we're going to have is we're going to have like problems, and we're going to have, you know, for each problem, we're going to have a set of solutions. And some of those solutions are going to be backwards compatible in a way that could be rolled out fairly fairly straightforwardly. And some of them are not, that are going to require a governance 2.0. The nice thing about governance, governance 2.0 basically means that the storage layout of the contract would be backwards incompatible, which means we would have to, basically deploy a new governance contract and transfer ownership of all of the existing contracts that governance owns to the new governance contract, which is, doable, but it's definitely like something that should not be taken lightly. And so I think there may be cases where if we want to get solutions out quicker, we're forced to go with like a more quickly and safely, we're forced to go with perhaps a solution that we feel is like inferior, but because it can be done easily in a backwards compatible way, we'll be able to deploy more quickly. I think no matter what, it should be a goal of us to get a governance 2.0 out there, because I think there are so many things we can improve upon. But I just have a hard time seeing that coming anytime soon, given like all the other stuff going on and the like risk that is entailed. We'd want probably to lean like heavily on auditors to, we'd have to like work really hard at that and then lean heavily on auditors to like back the migration change up as well.
Yeah, I think it's good, at least for the sake of this working group, to specify all the different brainstorming sessions that, like if you had a magic wand, right? And based on those and the feedback we see, what is like the timeline, the time frame, and then based on that, what is the priority and what do you think is the best next step and stuff in order to improve? Because like the original reason for this working group is because there were tension from external community members about like the existing process, nevertheless, right? So I think it's a good opportunity to at least brainstorm, see what would be like a really cool finalized governance 2.0. I just hope it doesn't take as long as 2.0 took so far, so as long as, that is not an issue, I think like it'll be good just to like specify what would be the path to that at least, and what would that look like for sure.
Yeah, agreed. A roadmap here would be nice. I can talk for a while about what I would like to see changed in governance 2.0. But I don't want to like dominate the conversation.
What I can suggest, because I think like, you have a lot of good feedback and ideas and discussions, is do you want to like, because do you want to add it as well, either maybe if it's attention or like proposals and ideas within this working doc, and then we can organize it and, we can cover it as well and see what you want to do, like at least for that part?
I would love to. And I think Amy put together a doc a long time ago.
Okay.
When we were thinking about governance 2.0. I think a lot of those ideas are, I think we may have additional ideas, but the ideas that we added to that doc then, I think are still almost certainly good ones. But this is going to be like at the earliest something I can get to like next week or the week after.
No worries.
But the list that Amy has, I think, has a lot of the great ideas that people have already thrown around. Yeah,
I'm gonna share it in the chat in case some folks haven't seen it, but here's the list Amy shared. Amy said in the last call that this is more focused on the technical implementation. Is that right, Amy, rather than just like processes in general?
Yeah, it's more oriented that there are some like process changes in there, but I think in terms of like some of this wider discussion that we're having around how we communicate proposals, and none of that is included. It's mostly tooling and like technical on-chain changes.
Okay. All right, so I invite everyone to take a look at it and, read through it and stuff, and potentially we can include it within the discussion and stuff like that, because I think it's important. Just in the sake of time, we have 15 more minutes for this call. I think we captured enough discussion on this item that it's worth, at least we have 3 action items here, which are just creating tickets, and we can just debate those async and within our Discord working group channel that I'm going to create after this call. Is that okay enough for us to move forward, or do you feel like somebody had more they want to talk about for this topic? Okay. So that brings me to the 3rd item on the list, which is, this is now it's going to start to get fun, right? So what I need is more CGP editors, right? Currently it's me doing CGP editing. And basically editing doesn't necessarily mean that, like, let's say you like the way editing works in CIP process is, like, me and James Prestwich, basically anytime there's a proposal in a CIP proposal, we review it to make sure it follows the template and that it's technically sound per se. But that's only for the CIP process, because the CIP process focuses predominantly on whether the technical implementation makes sense within the context of Celo. For the CGP editor role, it's going to be similar to the CIP, but all you need to be doing is, when you see a pull request, reviewing it to make sure that it will be consistent with a template, right? It's a volunteer kind of thing. I've done it for many years in other networks and stuff. It's actually very fun because it shows you how open source collaboration and specification works, right? So I think here I can go over it more, and if somebody here is interested in being an editor but they're not necessarily comfortable with GitHub, I can totally give you an overview of how to use GitHub only for writing. You don't even have to look at code and stuff just for writing. So if this is any interest, let me know if anyone, and ideally I want to look for people external from CLab, and if somebody at CLab also want to join me, that's great. But also it's a request for the community if anyone wants to join and be an editor.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that.
Okay, great. I'm gonna add your name, and then we can sync up after about this. Anyone else? If you're worried about time commitment, it's very async. You probably get pinged once or twice on GitHub, and you just have to review it to make sure it follows a template. And it's the work is just the work correlates with how many proposals are being sent. So if there's no proposal, there's no work, right? And it's entirely volunteer, but it's also like an opportunity to get more involved in the Celo ecosystem and help drive governance and stuff. Ronan, nice. Anyone else? I think 4 would be nice, but I'm happy that we got 2x. So. Okay. If no one else is interested, we can move on to the next topic. For the CGP editor role, what I'll do is I'll work on specifying what the role is, what is the scope of the role with Ronan and Elizabeth, and from there, that would mean another thing being, we might, by having a CGP editor role, we might want to move the governance repo or governance out of CIP process, because CIP process has its own editors, and GitHub on a repo level doesn't give you good permission to segue, to isolate different types of admin editors, right? So that adds complexity. So one of the proposals I'll be doing with the editors is, at the very least, moving governance to its own repo. So editors can just focus on governance and they don't have to worry about the CIP process, given that they're both in the same repo. Cool. Any further comments on this, or can we move on to the next point? Alrighty, awesome. So thank you, Elizabeth and Ronan, for volunteering to be CGP editor. I think like this will be really awesome. I'd like to see community participation in this process. So I'm very grateful to both of you. Okay. Okay. So the final topic is we have 10 minutes left. Well, not the final, but let's see how much we allocate for this time. Let's see. Oh, Amy, you had a comment?
Yeah, Nam had added like an item for this forum to discuss a specific contract change we wanted to make. That I'm not sure if like this looks like a long list of like process oriented stuff, but is that something that we can discuss as well?
Yeah, let me we can add it to the list if anything. Do you want to add it to the list? Is it more like attention or like a discussion on in general?
It was like more of a desire to get some quick feedback. This was something that we were putting out as a Gitcoin bounty, but then thought maybe the community might have some thoughts on it.
Yeah,
on the
feel free to
approach.
feel free to kick it off if you'd like.
Cool. So do you want to share the?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the chat. So this is shared by Nam. He wanted feedback on this item, and I'm just gonna click on the link here as well. So
Yeah.
everyone...
So essentially, the tension is that approvers, well, the approval period is pretty fast turnaround, and they there's no ability for them to unapprove if they later identify that there is some sort of security vulnerability or reason why it shouldn't be executed. And so this ticket has been in our backlog since September, and I guess wanted to get the community's thoughts about like whether providing that functionality to the approver to unapprove seems appropriate. And if anyone had any like contentions around that.
I think it makes sense. But I'll leave the floor for the rest of people. Asa said, I like it. Maybe I think is one of the I think maybe we can think of like if anyone doesn't know about this part of the process, Amy, do you want to go over like how the approvers work and stuff to further add about?
Yeah, so in the like governance life cycle, a proposal gets proposed and it's goes into a queue, and then daily 3 proposals get dequeued and enter into the approval stage. At the approval stage, we have, I believe it's 3 to 9 multi-sig of approvers, in which case 3 approvers must agree that this proposal can move forward to the voting stage, which is called the referendum stage. After there's like 1 day of this, and then it moves to the referendum stage, which is, I believe, currently a week long, where everybody who's a stakeholder can vote. And then after that has a certain amount of time that it can be executed, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but not as important to this conversation. So essentially, this ticket would allow approver, once it enters the referendum stage and people are already voting, approvers can, it would still be it'd be gone through the same multi-sig, so it would require 3 approvers to retract the approval. But this would essentially give them power to unapprove later on.
Okay. Kobe, did you want to add anything for that as well?
I guess one clarification I had is just, is it just one of the approvers could backtrack, or would it be?
No, so because it goes, like the execution goes through a multi-sig, you can't like backtrack by one. You have to get like 3 approvers to like execute the next action, which would be like the unapprove action.
So it would take the same condition as was required to approve. You'd need the same consensus.
Correct.
I mean, just thinking out. Sorry.
No, go on.
I mean, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but like if the Supreme Court makes a decision one way, are they allowed to like backtrack it? I guess they can if they have like some other case that's brought, but I don't know if that's a relevant example here, but there's definitely, you're making it less permanent, basically, the fact that there was a decision taken.
Definitely. And one interesting wrinkle that I think may require more thought is basically the people, the signers that revoke approval can be different than the signers that allow for approval. So like yeah, I don't know if there's like interesting dynamics that come with that if you start thinking about like what happens if governance approvers like turn evil, like if you assume that n of them are malicious, like what does this kind of change the dynamics from the current state? I guess the current state is that like with enough malicious approvers, proposals would get approved that should not be. Or like, approvers can make a governance proposal that is a bad proposal. They can approve it themselves, but then of course they'd need to rally the votes around it. Which hopefully, there would be a coordinated effort to like be able to stop that and convince people to vote otherwise. If you allow approval to be revoked, I guess enough governance approvers could maybe like try to stonewall approvals. But I mean, in either case, like approvers can be rotated out by other approvers. So I don't know.
So I guess
maybe it'll as soon as they're discovered to be evil, it seems like that it works out the same way. Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
I mean, what would the next best thing be if we didn't provide for this new provision and it was deemed there was a security risk? What would actually happen right now? There would need to be a brand new proposal brought.
What happens now is, go ahead.
Go ahead, Amy.
I was just gonna say, what happens now if like we discover that we don't want something approved? It's kind of just like a mass marketing campaign to encourage voters to not vote and to vote no on the proposal.
I guess maybe I misunderstood, but isn't this where you have something that's already been approved and you're now trying to revoke it afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
So you're past the mass marketing stage because it's already, let's say, been approved.
It's been approved by. Okay.
No, you got it, Amy. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's been approved by the approvers, but then it enters into the referendum stage where all Celo stakeholders can vote, and so it can still not pass by the Celo stakeholders. So what happens if it goes through the approval stage and a vulnerability or any reason that we don't want it to pass is detected? It would mostly just be like encouraging people to not vote for it.
Okay, so it's maybe I think I misunderstood. So it's like you're bringing a bill to the floor and then you're deciding, okay, we're going to withdraw the bill. We're not going to allow it to be voted on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I don't see any issue there. I don't see as much anyway.
Yeah, I guess if this approval can only be revoked during the approval stage, but once it exits the approval stage, whatever the value is final, then I think some of the it doesn't look that different than I think it's strictly better than what we have now.
Oh, so you're saying just in the approval stage, not in the referendum stage?
I think that's a question, right? Like what are we proposing the change be? And I think the analogy Ronan used would map to just allowing approval revocation during the approval stage, Ronan, it's possible to build this in a way that where I guess if we lean into like a US government analogy, the approvers are both the Speaker of the House or the Senate Majority Leader that decides what bills get to be voted on, and the President that get to later decide, like, once the votes are, if the votes are there, whether or not it goes through. And I think the question is, like, right now, the approvers are the Senate Majority Leader, but once they decide that a bill should go to a vote, even if they change their mind later before the vote happens, they can't take it back. And so we could add the ability for them to take it back if the vote still hasn't started yet. We could also add the ability for them to like be the president and veto the bill even after it's been voted on, depending on what change is made to the code. Like both of these, I think, are like fairly straightforward.
Okay. We're currently 1 minute over time, so Amy, did you want any kind of rough consensus on this actual existing proposal, or did you get the feedback that you needed?
I mean, I guess there's still some open-end questions, so maybe people can continue discussing on this ticket. I guess I was hoping it wouldn't be super contentious, but if people have any, because we were intending to go with it could be removed during referendum as well. But if people still have concerns with that, maybe comment on this ticket and then can like see where we result in a week or so.
All right, so I'm gonna make this, where is it located? Okay. I'm gonna, when I create the group, I'll add this ticket as one of the action items for the group in the Discord to comment on this, or if people want to comment on the ticket now, feel free to do so. How do you write a comment? Okay. Action item. Discord channel. All right. Does that sound good for everyone? Cool. Yeah, so we're at time. I'm gonna stop sharing now. Gab, feel free to, stop recording whenever. And yeah, I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time again for participating in another working group call. I'm really excited about the level of participation and stuff. I think there's a lot of ways we can go with this and stuff. And I'll try to pull everyone. I'll create this the Discord channel for the working group, and we can continue coordination over there. So thank you everyone, and I'll see you in a few weeks time.